Official visit season is here. It's finally about to start. The official visits will begin today. Pitt will have a bunch of recruits coming to campus, maybe as many as a dozen. Somewhere around there, those numbers always shift and change. And sometimes I don't even think the Pitt coaches are entirely 100% sure until the kids get on the airplane to fly to Pittsburgh. But we know a bunch of guys are going to be here. We know who a bunch of those guys are. Let's talk about the official visitors coming to Pitt this weekend, who they are, where they stand on Pitt's board, what they would mean if they commit, and just maybe who the Panthers might land out of this weekend's official visits. The official visits start today, and we're going to talk about it on the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, it's official visit season. It starts today. Pitt will have a bunch of recruits coming to campus today. They'll arrive today. They'll be here for 48 hours, so they'll stay until Saturday for their official visits, where the red carpet will be rolled out like a quarterback's jersey in camp, and they will get all the best that there is to experience of Pittsburgh. What's the weather supposed to be like for this weekend, actually? I should have looked that up. Weather can be a big factor, and I actually think the advent of the June official visits, which we talked about a little bit yesterday. Of course, the weather app not loading. Shout out to you, weather app. Junk. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. The official visits always used to happen in December, January, sometimes during the fall. But about 6 years ago, they started having official visits in the spring and in June. And I think that only helped Pitt. I mean, June was always a big month for recruiting, but putting the official visits where you can really control all elements, well, actually, that's an important point. You control almost all elements of the experience except for the elements. And if you brought kids in, they were bringing kids from Florida for official visits in December and January. How do you think that went? And I mean, they still landed a lot of those guys. A lot of those kids had a good, good. They were in good spirits about the weather. They didn't get too worked up about it. They were good sports, and didn't. I mean, there were probably guys who rejected Pitt because of the weather, because it was too cold. But you bring them in June, and it's beautiful here. I mean, this is one of the best months of the year. I think weather-wise is June. I mean, it's pretty warm right now. I'm sweating as I sit here. But by and large, June is a good month weather-wise in the city of Pittsburgh. And it looks like these official visits today, tomorrow, Saturday, it's going to be nice. Should be clear, no rain. Warm today, cool off a little bit tomorrow. Be right in the middle on Saturday, so it should be a great weekend. It should be a great weekend for weather-wise, and it should be a great. I keep saying weekend. It's Thursday through Saturday. They used to always do these Friday through Sunday, but Pitt is doing theirs today through Saturday for the official visit weekend, and then they have a prospect camp on Sunday. They don't want to have overlap between the official visits and the prospect camp. They want to keep all the focus on the official visits when it's visit time. And then they want to have all the focus on the prospect camps when it's camp time. And I think that makes sense. So official visits now through Saturday. We'll have updates kind of throughout the weekend or throughout the official visit. We try not to bother the recruits too much during their official visits, just sort of let them have the experience and then catch up with them afterward. But we'll definitely have a lot of updates on Saturday and Sunday as those guys leave Pittsburgh and get home and reflect on their experience at Pitt. And it really is a top-of-the-line experience. I mean, there's Mount Washington. There's good Pittsburgh restaurants that are involved. They take them to Acrisure Stadium, and they have a nice night there. They have a big dinner there. Usually, I think on like Saturday night, they go to the stadium, and they have dinner there, and they're out on the field, and the lights are on, and it's just a cool experience. A lot of guys really get into that. Typically, I say Saturday night. On these Thursday to Saturday visits, it would be Friday night. Typically, they'll sort of close things out on the final day of the visit, in this case, Saturday. They'll close things out on the final day of the visit with a sit-down with Pat Narduzzi, and that's sort of the moment where it all comes together. That's where Narduzzi makes the pitch, although I don't think he's a hard sale kind of guy. In some situations, probably goes by whatever the situation calls for. But that's where a lot of guys end up committing. You see them commit during that final sit down with Narduzzi. And there is sort of that air of finality. Like you finish the visit by sitting down with the head coach and you reflect on everything you've done for the last 48 hours and your experience and how you would fit in with the offense or how you would fit in with the defense and what you think about the coaches and the players. Because the players are a part of this too. The current Pitt players, because each of these recruits will have a host. Somebody will be hosting them on their visit and showing them around and kind of be like their main guy for the visit. And the coaches are very particular about which players they choose to serve as recruiting hosts. I mean, they want to get the right guy to host each kid. And you'll see a lot of times it'll be younger players, freshmen or sophomores, redshirt freshmen, guys even who enrolled early in January will often serve as hosts because they can, they're a little bit younger. They're closer in age to these high school kids who are coming in for their official visits. And so, you might see somebody like a Sincere Edwards, who enrolled in January or will end up being a host for these recruits, even though they just got there, they just got here 5 months ago. The coaches want to give each recruit typically someone at their position, someone who can relate to them, who can answer all their questions, who can show them around, who can really give them a sense of what it's like to be a student athlete at the University of Pittsburgh. And that's what this is all about. The official visit weekends are really about giving the recruit an idea of what it'll be like to live in this place and be in this place and exist in this place, not just as a student athlete, but as a student, as a citizen of the city of Pittsburgh, as a University of Pittsburgh student, someone who lives in Oakland, who spends all their time in this area. That's what it is. And I've often said, that's a big part, I think, of the recruiting pitch for Pitt. One of the things that Pitt is always going to be hit on is attendance at the games, right? And if you've listened to these podcasts or heard me talk at any point over the last 20 years, I've always said this. All right, attendance is always going to be a knock on Pitt. Oh, look at their crowds. Look, nobody ever shows up. Oh, yeah. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's like proof. It's a tangible thing. There are attendance numbers and there are photos of a game day atmosphere. And there are attendance numbers at other schools and photos of their game day atmospheres. And you can't fib on that. You can't manipulate that at all. I'm a big fan of manipulating stats, manipulating sample sizes. Listen to anything I've said about Nate Yarnell based on 3 starts that he's made. I clearly am all about using sample size to my advantage to make a point. But there's nothing you could do when it comes to attendance, right? The numbers are what they are. You can see images. You can go to the game. You experience it yourself. Pitt doesn't draw, all right? Attendance is not a strong point for Pitt. Okay. So how do you recruit around that? What do you do to sort of subvert that? If you're recruiting against Penn State or Michigan or any of these schools that draw 70, 80, 90, 100,000 people for every game, what do you do? Well, here's one sales pitch. And this is what I've always said. And I think the Pitt coaches, they may not be as direct about it as this or as explicit, but I think this is the impression you're trying to give and create is yeah, all right. Let's take Penn State, for example. All right, 107,000 every game. It's not really that, but let's call it that. 107,000 every game. It's impressive. Pitt's going to draw half that for every game. And that's great. That's a great atmosphere. One of the great atmospheres in college football, one of the great experiences in college football. Not going to deny that. This is what I would say. If I like what I'm saying right now is what I would say if I was Pat Narduzzi. And a recruit says to me, he's like, I don't know, coach, that game day atmosphere at Penn State is just really special. I would say it is. Absolutely is. If I'm Pat Narduzzi, I've coached there. I've coached there twice with Pitt and, a bunch of times with Michigan State. It's awesome there. No doubt about it. One of the great college football experiences. And then I would say this. I would say, and for those 7 Saturdays, you're going to have an amazing experience at those games. No doubt about it. But there's also 358 other days in the year where you have to be comfortable and enjoy where you are. And I think that's the pitch that Pitt would make or has to make or should make. That's how you offset the attendance thing is you say, yeah, sure, for 7 Saturdays a year, you're going to have this great game day experience. But you have to live in that place for the other 358 days. And is that the place you want to live? I heard somebody say it once. Would you go to this school if it wasn't for football? And you can't just say if it wasn't for football. Football is a big factor. Football is very significant. It's a big part of the reason why they're choosing a school. But you want to, I think that's a point you want to emphasize is and if you're Pat Narduzzi, you would say, look, would you want to live in Oakland? Would you want to go to these classes, go to these school, academic buildings, be with these academic advisors because they meet with the advisors and everything, be around these people, be in this environment, even if there wasn't football? And I think that's what you want to sell because, Oakland's a pretty cool place. By and large, Pitt, you're going to get a good education, the academic buildings and facility, all those things, right? the faculty, all that. That's a big part of the recruiting pitch. And what these official visit weekends do is ostensibly, and I mean, you obviously put your prettiest face on, but you're going to try to give the recruit an experience of what it's like to actually live in this place and be a student at this school. You want to give them an experience. And so that's where the player hosts come in, because the hosts, for the most part, are there to show the recruit what it's actually like to live in the dorms or the off-campus housing or wherever they might live, and to move around campus, to get from one place to another, to eat and be in the student experience. That's part of that recruiting pitch, and I think that's a big part of it, and I think that's what you're trying to achieve on the official visit, in addition to all the academic tours and the facilities and the meetings with the coaches and watching film and all those things, and talking about why it's a fit for football, because you can't entirely ignore the football side of it. You've got to sell the football side and the success that Pitt has and the success that Pitt can have and how you fit into their defense or their offense and your relationship with Cade Bell or Tim Doust or whoever the recruiting coach might be. And so that's what they're trying to do this weekend. That's what they're trying to do with the recruits who are coming to town. Let's talk about who a few of those guys are. Now, we've got about a dozen guys on our official visit list. Names will be added and subtracted. I think, it was happening last night. I think it'll happen today until we get sort of a finalized, confirmed list. And to some extent, I think, I've often heard from like Pitt coaches and guys who are involved with this stuff of like, yeah, we're kind of waiting until they get on the plane to know for sure if this kid or that kid is going to come in. But some guys we know are going to be here are 4 of Pitt's commitments. The quarterback Mason Heinschel from Ohio, all-purpose back Tony Kinsler from Florida, one of the highest-rated guys in Pitt's recruiting class right now. Bryce Yates, a wide receiver from Virginia, and Trevor Summers, the first commitment in the class, a defensive end from Florida. They're all going to be here on campus for their official visits. And it's always good to sprinkle in the commitments, have a few commitments on each official visit weekend, because those are guys who are already sold on your school. Those are guys who have already committed, and you want them to be around, ideally, if they're like good outgoing personalities and good salespeople themselves, you want them to be around these other recruits that you're targeting so they can try and spread that love, of Pitt. You know what I mean? Like yeah, come with me. Come join me, man. We are going to be so good. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Don't you want to come and play with me? I can't wait to throw to you. All this kind of stuff. That's, so again, you're strategic about these things. There's a lot of strategy and a lot of planning that goes into these things. There are very few details that are left to chance. Very few things happen by happenstance. They are mixing and matching recruits to try to get the optimal atmosphere, situation, and experience. And so you have those 4 commitments. Now, a few guys that are going to be worth watching out of the uncommitted recruits, the targets. There's a tight end from Florida, Max Hunt. He's 6'5", 210 pounds. And, a receiver target, obviously that size, he's sort of a big receiver or a lighter tight end, but he is a pass-catching tight end, potentially a playmaker at that spot. And we're highlighting him first because he said in April, quote, "Pitt is my top school." He has no other official visits scheduled as of yet, because these guys can take I think they can take unlimited official visits now. But as of this week, Max Hunt had not scheduled any other official visits. And so he's a guy we're putting on commitment watch, just keeping an eye on this weekend, for A, saying Pitt's his top school, and B, saying that, not having any other official visits scheduled right now. Another guy we're watching, Demarion Falks. I think it's pronounced Falks. It might be Folks. From Good Counsel, he's a wide receiver. He's another one who called Pitt his number 1 school. You keep an eye on guys like that, guys who talk about the school being their number 1 school, and they haven't committed, but they don't have any other official visits scheduled. Sort of feels like an opportunity. There's an opportunity to close things out. And Falks is actually going to be here with his teammate, linebacker Justin Thompson. He's a 6'3", 225-pound linebacker. You got to love that size. You almost wonder if he's going to be too big. But, we've seen this staff go for some lighter some lighter linebackers, I should say. But Justin Thompson, also from Good Counsel, which is a great high school program in Maryland. He's got no other official visits scheduled. So, again, there's a guy we're watching. His teammate has already said Pitt's his number one school. Neither one of them has any other official visits scheduled. Kind of watch for a little bit of a domino effect there. One teammate goes, maybe the other one gets caught up in the excitement and gets on board as well. That's, those are guys that we're definitely keeping an eye on. There's also Madrid Tucker. He's a cornerback from Florida, a 5'11", 160-pound cornerback. He's speedy. He's an athlete. He's a playmaker. He scored 15 touchdowns last year. Pitt likes him on defense, but he was a playmaker all over the place. He's also a baseball player, a good baseball player. Batted like between 400 and 500 this season. Which I think speaks well of athleticism. You like those guys for positions like quarterback, defensive back. If you get a good baseball player, I think some of those athletic skills and abilities can kind of translate from those baseball positions over to some of those football positions. But Madrid Tucker does not have any other official visits scheduled right now, so he's another guy that we're sort of keeping an eye on. Now, we've seen plenty of recruits in the past who had other official visits scheduled and they end up committing and canceling their remaining visits. And we've seen recruits who didn't have any official visits scheduled still hold off and not commit. So we don't want to say this is a guarantee, but when we look at Max Hunt, we look at Justin Thompson, Demarion Folks, and Madrid Tucker, two of those four guys said Pitt's their number one school. None of them have any other official visits scheduled. You got to think there's a real possibility there. And so we're keeping an eye on all of those guys. Another interesting one is Byron Nelson. Classic guy, right? Classic name. He's an offensive lineman from Katy, Texas. He's coming up here. He's 6'3", 280. He's a guard prospect. Potentially could play center at that size. He's got other official visits scheduled, North Carolina and Vanderbilt. But it's interesting, taking that first official visit to Pitt, you always wonder if you're able to convince a guy when you're the first official visit, if you can just knock his socks off and impress him so much that you can convince him to turn around and just say, no, man, I don't want to be anywhere else. This is the perfect place for me. And then go and cancel those other official visits. Now, I have to say this. All right, this is a caveat we always have to offer. Like, they're going to get commitments this weekend. There's actually a couple caveats we have to offer here. They're going to get commitments this weekend. All right, we're going to see that Pat Narduzzi Pitt is it tweet go out. It might happen today or tomorrow. Most likely, those tweets will go out on Saturday. They'll get commitments. All right, it's like 95% chance that they will. There's also a decent chance that we may not get those names public for a few days after they commit. Like last year, it got out of hand. I mean, guys were waiting a long time to announce their commitments. It even happened 2 years ago. Jordan Bass committed during his official visit, didn't announce until like September 1st. I think Lamar Seymour waited until like later in July after committing during his June official. And there were guys last year. I mean, Jeremiah Marcelin put it off. There were a few others that like waited until like July or something like that after committing during their June visits. So we'll be keeping track of how many commitments have come in and how many have been publicly announced, so we know sort of keep a running tally of like, okay, that covers that one, that covers that one, that covers that. There's still 2 unannounced commitments yet, and we'll post all the info and intel and whatever we can come up with on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. This is actually a good time to point out that if you want to keep up on all the info about the official visits, the place to do it is Panther-Lair.com. And if you sign up now, okay, and this is a limited time promo that we're offering, all right? I got a few more things to say about the official visits, but I'm going to say this now. If you sign up, you can get Panther-Lair.com, okay, premium access to Panther-Lair.com, to the best Pitt info you're going to find now through the start of training camp. All right, we're basically giving you a free trial until August 10th. If you sign up with the promo code PITTVisits, one word, PITTVISITS, Pitt Visits, okay? Use that promo code and you will get a free trial through the start of training camp, which means you'll get all the info on the official visits this weekend and next weekend and the weekend after that, all of our training camp preview content, all of our recruiting content, all of the inside info that we come up with on the recruiting visits, everything that we're going to have, you're going to get it for free until the start of training camp. Promo code PITTVisits. Go to Panther-Lair.com right now, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Click to sign up. Sign up for a premium subscription, a premium membership. use that promo code PITTVISITS, PITTVISITS, and you get free access until the start of training camp. And I have to warn you, okay, I have to caution you that if you do this, you might not want to cancel when August gets here, because you get all the football coverage, the basketball coverage, the recruiting coverage. You get all the interaction on the message boards where we drop a lot of our info and intel. We don't put it all on Twitter. We don't put it all on the front page of the site. A lot of it we put straight onto the message boards, and you want to be there to read it, discuss it, talk about it, and just generally be a part of the best online community of Pitt sports fans. So remember, promo code PITTVISITS right now will get you a free trial through the start of training camp. This promo ends it ends on Monday, actually. So you need to sign up between now and Monday, and you'll get free access, free trial through the start of training camp. August 10th is the date we're cutting it off. I think camp might actually start a week before that, but we're going to give you a free trial through the first week of training camp. So Pitt Visits is the promo code at pittsburgh.rivals.com. All right, official visits getting started. Kids are going to be flying in throughout the day today. We'll be confirming their arrivals, confirming updates throughout the weekend as they visit, and then getting all the updates on Saturday and Sunday after those guys go home, how the visits went and who ended up committing. They're going to be commitments, so you want to make sure you stay tuned at Panther-Lair.com. We'll have the mailbag tomorrow, the Morning Pitt mailbag. You don't want to miss that, so like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe button is right down there. You see it. Subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you've had a great week so far. I hope you're ready for a big recruiting weekend. And we will catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pitt mailbag and all weekend long with the recruiting updates on Panther-Lair.com and right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.